if Jameis Winston is starting this week, and you guys obviously had a quarter and a half playing with him, does anything change with the mindset?
I don't really know, to be honest. I just came in trying to do my job, so we know what he can do. We played with him last year. He can run the offense well also, so we're excited. Whoever's back there, we're just going to do everything we can to get open for whoever's back there. So
that was Saints wide receiver Chris Olave, kind of operating how we do on this show. We just show up and do our job, no matter the circumstance. Chris Olave ready to play with Jameis Winston.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
There you go.
As are you guys.
That's right. I'm just going to get open and do my job.
No, listen, thank God you guys are contractually obligated to be here. Because otherwise, which is
Monday to Friday.
Yeah, well, you're exactly. I mean, I remind that of Beth all the time too. I said, you're contractually obligated to be here. Just so you know.
That is marriage. Chris Olave obviously headlines the love list here against the Bucs. Olave ready to play with Jameis Winston. He's been targeted heavily this season. And quite frankly, I mean, yes, losing Derek Carr hurts, Jay. And I know Jameis didn't look good coming in last week, but you still have confidence in Olave with Jameis coming in.
Yeah, I would worry more about the other guys than Olave, because the thing about Jameis is even when you get bad Jameis, even when he goes full Jameis, which you never want to do, Matthew, you never want to go full Jameis, he still throws it down the field. He's still got a really deep average depth of target. That's where Olave thrives. He gets down the field. He will be fine, whoever his quarterback is.
Since he entered the NFL, Jameis Winston leads all quarterbacks in air yards per pass attempt as well. Buccaneers have allowed over 100 receiving yards to a wide receiver in every game this season. So you're like, well, who's it going to be this week? Pretty sure it's going to be Chris Olave, who, this offense runs through him. Jameis ain't scared to chuck it. He's got some Taylor Heineke in him. Taylor actually has some Jameis Winston in him. But either way, Chris Olave is a top 8 wide receiver for me this week. I am at wide receiver 8.
Another wide receiver on the love list. Maybe a get-right game, Matthew, for T. Higgins. The targets have been there for T. Higgins. Now the matchup is there. Is this finally the week?
Wide receivers facing Tennessee have caught 75% of their targets this year. 75% of their targets. Get it somewhere near a wide receiver against Tennessee, they're coming down with it. And to your point, Connor, T. Higgins has been getting the love, right? Exactly. He's had at least 8 targets in every single game this year. Titans have allowed 19 or more fantasy points to a wide receiver in every single game. We expect Jamar Chase to go off, but we also expect T. Higgins to go off. We talked earlier in the show that Joe Mixon should have tough going. Again, it's sort of like, asked and answered, rinse and repeat. You don't play your running back against the Titans. You start out all aspects of the passing game against them. It's a get-right game for Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, you're already starting. T. Higgins, you're already starting. But I do think after a tough game last week, T. Higgins gets back on track. I have him at wide receiver 14 this week. Give me some tea.
Okay, I'll give you some tea. I think with the Titans...
Spill the tea.
That's bad. Titans,
I pity the fool that don't play T. Higgins.
Okay.
Do you get that?
Yeah,
it's
I got
a step
that one.
removed.
Yeah,
because that was Mr. T.
Yes.
Right? And then he's T. Higgins.
How deep does the rabbit hole go, Matthew?
Yes.
Because you've definitely taken the red pill and you're going down the rabbit hole.
1,000%. Yeah.
We won't anyway. We won't get into that anymore, Connor. I think with the Titans defense, it's so bad that they fixed Deshaun Watson, who was 0 for 8 in terms of even reasonable games. Yeah. And then he played like an MVP against the Titans. I don't really understand how their secondary is that bad. The talent to me doesn't seem that bad. Like, how is it like this?
It is crazy to me. I mean, and they have a great coach in Mike Vrabel, too. So when you look at it, it's just now a lot of the corners they've drafted over the years have not lived up to the hype. They've had a lot of misses there throughout the draft. I think their pass rush from the edges is trying to get healthy. But quite frankly, they're just getting torn apart.
Yeah. Here's what you're hoping for, just to give everyone here a rooting interest, is that obviously we want Burrow and Chase and Higgins to go off, unless we're facing them, in which case we don't. But they're going to go off, so don't worry about that. But you're hoping that the Bengals beat them, and you hope the Bengals beat them in such a way that the Titans management sit there and go, you know what? This ain't our year. This ain't our year. Hey, Joe Douglas, what do you give me for Ryan Tannehill? Right. Hey, every other general manager in the NFL, what do you give me for Derrick Henry? That's what we need. We need Ryan Tannehill to go to we need the Titans to say, like, you know what? We're tearing it down. We're going to get Malik Willis or Will Levis in there and see what we got from them the rest of the season. Tannehill, go save Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall's fantasy value. Derrick Henry, King Henry, we're going to move you off to the
Ravens. We'll do it again.
The Ravens. 1,000. Wait, last. Yes.
Always
we would
the Ravens.
King Henry on the Ravens would be amazing. They may not want to trade him in the AFC, but whatever. Wherever Derrick Henry goes, that would be great. And then Tajay Spears, who we all love as well, he gets some run. This is what we need to happen. This would be amazing for everyone except, maybe Titans fans.
It's the fantasy elixir, actually.
But I also think Titans fans are like, you know what? This ain't our year.
Team's not going anywhere. That offensive line, they're not going anywhere.
No,
offensive
exactly.
line, secondary.
Yeah, so if you're the Titans, you should just be like, you know what? All right.
Yeah.
We'll take it. We'll take it off for a year. We'll rebuild. There we go.
And for as bad as Tannehill
That's what everyone should be rooting for. The entire universe. We can all get together on this.
Yes.
What?
For as bad as Tannehill has been this year, he's a massive upgrade for Garrett Wilson right now.
Massive.
Yep.
He played good in week 2. Tannehill had a good game against the Chargers, right? Yeah, against the Chargers. Yeah. Tannehill had a good game in week 2. Tannehill is a professional NFL quarterback.
Right.
And
rich man's Mike White. Very rich man's Mike White.
I mean, honestly, seriously, like.
Sorry, Mike White.
There's that comparison's amazing.
Yeah.
Mike White turned Garrett Wilson into a top 5 receiver in the NFL. That's all he needs.
It's a Joe Flacco.
He just needs competence, and Ryan Tannehill is the epitome of competence.
And let's get DeAndre Hopkins somewhere too.
Okay,
there you go. Bingo, bango.
Yeah.
Done and done. That's what we're hoping for.
Bango. Our next wide receiver, Jakobi Meyers, he's got that Chargers defense this week. Listen, Jakobi Meyers, week 1 and week 3 this season is 2 healthy weeks. I mean, Jay, he's been a target monster in this offense.
Yep, 22 targets for a team that really only throws to 2 guys. It's just throw it to Devontae. Oh, Devontae's not on right. Throw it to Jakobi. There's nothing else going. I don't really understand why Lawrence's man Hunter Renfrow just gets no activity whatsoever, but this is an offense where it's just throw it to those 2 wide
Austin
receivers.
Hooper hasn't gotten a lot of love either,
And we'll see if that changes with Jimmy potentially missing, though we don't have clarity on that situation. But either way, I think Devontae and Jakobi Meyers will provide value.
Yeah, and by the way, I mean, Jakobi Meyers, I'm assuming that, big assumption, but I'm assuming that Garoppolo is playing. I ranked him as such as well. So, I mean, obviously, if it were Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell, we would lower expectations for the entire passing offense. But listen, the 2 games he's played, he's got a 31% target share, 22 targets. And I love this stat, by the way. Again, Brandon Staley's a defensive coach.
Yes.
Right? We have no questions about Kellen Moore in the offense for L.A. But the Chargers have allowed the most fantasy points, the most yards, and the most touchdowns to wide receivers through 3 weeks.
So now, to be fair, they played Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, which looks like the greatest offense of all time at the moment. But
they put him in single coverage, though.
I know.
And they played him last year. They knew what was coming. Stop it.
What I love about that is
I don't know. Buck, compared to Brandon Staley, I'm sure he's forgotten more about football than I'll ever know in my life. But even I'm like, we should probably try to double these guys.
Right.
Here's the thing
let's play a shell defense and give them underneath stuff. Let's bump them off the line. Let's do anything.
Anything else.
But put Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in single coverage.
The beauty of that is last year they forced Tua into the worst game of his career. And let's do something different.
Right.
And let's give up 466 yards.
Anyway.
So the Chargers, looking good for
we like
Jakobi
Jakobi
Meyers.
Meyers this week as a top 20 play, assuming Garoppolo plays.
We also like Sam LaPorta, who is currently a top 3 tight end in fantasy as it stands right now, and he's obviously got Thursday Night Football.
He's like a young Luke Musgrave out there.
Green Bay on tap, and Barry, he comes in as tight end 5 for you this week.
We've talked about LaPorta a lot. Second highest target share among all tight ends this season. He's finished as a top 8 tight end every week so far this season. I wonder if the reason that, I'll just say this. If I was Sam LaPorta, because, tight ends and pop stars are kind of a thing now, and he's now like an elite tight end, so he should look out there like, I don't know, Ariana Grande dating anyone these days?
Right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I got to look at my Tiger Beat or whatever. That's a reference that no one gets.
Yeah,
but whatever. I gotta go on TMZ. I gotta go on TikTok. I gotta figure out which pop star is single these days. As a married man, I don't really look through those things, but I'll figure it out or research. We'll get Penn State Blake on that. Penn State Blake, do me a favor. Tell me a list of single pop stars that Sam LaPorta could put out into the universe and try to date. Ariana Grande was the first one that popped into my mind.
If you're a top 3 tight end in fantasy right now, it's the play.
I'm just saying. Who is single, Steven? Methuselah? Is that what you're trying to say?
I think you have Methuselah.
Yeah. Good God. My producer Steven's in my ear trying to give me a joke that didn't land.
Let's take a look at some others receiving votes.
What I'm up against here? This is all I'm saying. All right, go ahead. What do we got?
Some others receiving votes. The leader of the old pack of people, Adam Thielen, he tops the list.
Did you have to look at me when you said that?
Yeah, no, that's the point. Tutu Atwell, of course. Tank Dell, of course, Tank Dell. Elijah Moore quietly been involved in that Cleveland offense. Luke Musgrave, he's drinking for free today. And Jay, the touchdown monster, Donald Parham. All he does is catch touchdowns.
Yeah,
XFL
he does.
Superstar.
Yep, shades of, as we talked about, he's kind of become the Jawan Johnson of this year, where it seems like 60% of his receptions are just touchdowns for Justin Herbert, but he seems to have a rapport. Parham, I mean, he's not the most exciting tight end because he is so touchdown dependent, but pretty much all tight ends except for 6 of them are touchdown dependent, so he is viable.
And he's had at least one end zone target in every game so far this season. Elijah Moore, just on something like that, which I know is, a guy that you've talked about a lot, Jay, but I was surprised when I did my research to find this out. Baltimore has actually allowed the most receptions to opposing wide receivers this entire season. That's not who I would have thought they were up there, but I didn't think they allowed the most. So they do as well. And so Moore, who's got 25 targets through 3 weeks, same numbers as Amari Cooper. When you watch those Cleveland Brown games, it hasn't always been pretty, and it's not always like deep. I mean, it's a lot of around the line of scrimmage stuff, but they're manufacturing touches for Elijah Moore, Connor.
They are. They're using him in ways that Ole Miss kind of used him, where you can get him involved in the quick passes and the scheme touches and the jet sweeps. And with preseason was the first time we saw him used in the backfield as well. So Elijah Moore definitely involved in that offense.
Just quickly on the Ravens, I think it's gone under the radar. I don't think people have thought about the Ravens much because they played the Texans and the Colts and then the Bengals with Burrow banged up. They haven't really played a prominent game. Like, they're missing like half their team.
They're running out of edge players. They literally don't have any edge players left that are healthy.
Exactly. So I do think that this should be a good game for Deshaun Watson and his pass catchers.
Yeah, and we're expecting Cooper Kupp, or we're hoping for Cooper Kupp back next week, but he's out again this week. So Tutu Atwell, who very quietly has 15 or more fantasy points in every game this season as well. Colts have allowed the 3rd most receptions on deep passes. Tutu Atwell is their deep player. And so, there's been so much hype, and rightfully so, on Puka Nacua that I think people are missing. Tutu Atwell's played really well as well.
Yep, he has. And I think he will maintain some sort of role when Kupp comes back at the expense of Connor's man, Van Jefferson.
That's right. All right. Yeah, my man. Hate list here. Unfortunately, the man at the top, Garrett Wilson, because he just doesn't have a quarterback right now. Garrett Wilson going up against the Chiefs. I mean, this is the story of 2022, guys. When Garrett Wilson plays with somebody else at quarterback, he goes off. He literally won Offensive Rookie of the Year, in part because of that. When he plays with Zach Wilson, well, quite frankly, nothing's working.
It's tough to watch as well. He's had 12 pure games with Zach Wilson. He's averaging single-digit fantasy points in those 12 games, and that includes the touchdown he caught in Week 1, the one-handed amazing grab that he made to help beat the Bills. Chiefs, by the way, have played pretty good defense this year. They've allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers so far this season. And they faced the Jackson. It's not just the Bears that they beat up on. I mean, they held the Jaguars. They held Calvin Ridley. So anyway, I think it's a tough matchup here for Garrett Wilson. I'm just outside my top 20 as well. Other guys on the hate list. DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is one of my favorite players in the NFL, has been since he came in. I don't think it's his fault, as we've talked about. The quarterback play's been inconsistent. The line has been tough as well. But listen, he's had back-to-back games with under 50 receiving yards for the first time since 2020, Week 16 and 17. He's had 0 end zone targets. Part of the problem is that the Titans, believe it or not, haven't had a play inside an opponent's 10-yard line in 2 of their 3 games this year. Just the whole offense is brutal. So, I have Hop at wide receiver 32 this week.
Yeah, it's grim. Just quickly on Garrett Wilson, we touched on this a little bit yesterday, but he will have a different quarterback in 3 weeks. Now, that different quarterback might be a better and fixed version of Zach Wilson, but it's more likely, I think, going to be someone else. So it is going to get better for Garrett Wilson, because if Zach Wilson keeps playing like this, he's just not going to be the quarterback coming out of the bye.
He can't be. And Trevor Siemian was the first step of a sign that it's not necessarily Trevor Siemian, but somebody different.
I mean, when Trevor Siemian's often the first sign of a lot of things. This is
problematic, to say the least. We talked about this on Keep It Open or Close It Out yesterday with Lawrence, but Jay, Jahan Dotson right now, he just really can't get anything consistently going, and we talked about Eric Bieniemy's Washington offense. It spreads the ball around to everyone.
It does, and going up against a tough Eagles defense. The thing with Dotson is that a lot of his value last year was tied to the fact that he had 7 receiving touchdowns, and he's just not getting that work. I would still trust in the talent and that he's going to come good at some point, but the Eagles are a tough matchup, and we saw what happened with Mike Evans, who until that point had been an all-world receiver in the first couple of weeks, and Chris Godwin. So I would expect that it's probably going to be tough sledding.
Single-digit fantasy points in every single game this season. Again, everyone wants to call me a homer, but look, Brian Robinson and Jahan Dotson both on the hate list this week. I'm just saying, it's tough, right? there's nothing from this year that gives you confidence in starting him this week.
Yep.
I believe in the talent. I believe in the kid in a big way, but not this week.
Our last pass catcher on the hate list, David Njoku. We just finished talking about how the Browns are getting Elijah Moore involved. Amari Cooper is a staple. But I think the reality is, Barry, one, we don't know if Deshaun Watson can support a ton of different pass catchers. And number two, they haven't tried to support David Njoku this year.
No, they haven't. One of the issues is that, and we've talked about this somewhat with Kittle too, Njoku's a great blocker. You know what I mean? And so because this is a team that wants to be run heavy and maybe they need to lean on the run game without Nick Chubb, they're going to need to hey, let's keep him into block even more because we're going to need that help with Jerome Ford. And the other running backs we have there, he's had just an 11% target share this season, 4 fewer targets in every single game. And then you look at this matchup with the Ravens where Baltimore has allowed only the second fewest fantasy points to tight ends through 3 weeks. He's my tight end 14. Again, believe in the talent, think it'll get better, but not this week. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.